All right, let's dive right into this ultimate crash course explainer. Word on the street is your Pad270 paper is in exactly 4 days, so we have absolutely no time for fluff. Today, we're going to dig into these lecture notes together and hyper-focus on the exact definitions, timelines, and frameworks you're going to need to ace this thing. Let's turn these notes into a streamlined mental filing cabinet, shall we?
Here is the roadmap to get us there. 1. Defining nationalism. 2. Malaysia's nationalist movements. 3. Forging national unity. 4. The Constitution and constitutionalism. And finally, 5. The fundamentals of Malaysia's constitution.
Kicking things off with Section 1, Defining Nationalism.
To really grasp the foundational definitions here, you've got to look at Hayes and Snyder. For Hayes, the absolute keyword to remember is patriotism. He sees it as a fusion of that patriotic feeling with a consciousness of nationality. Snyder, on the other hand, gets a bit more physical. He focuses on a group living in a well-defined geographical area that shares a common language and traditions. Now, Garvin introduces a really fascinating concept: primordial attachments. He argues that nationalism isn't just some modern political idea, but rather a deep ancient loyalty. And crucially, he points out that it possesses both positive and destructive powers. It can entirely unite a people, but it can also tear regions apart.
Then there's Plominats, who frames nationalism primarily as a defensive reaction. He suggests this sentiment emerges when a national or cultural identity feels threatened or inadequate. Basically, it's a desire to preserve exactly who you are when outside forces start pushing against you.
Moving right along to Section 2, Malaysia's nationalist movements.
So, looking at the history, British colonization acted as the ultimate catalyst for local nationalism. You had foreigners exploiting natural resources, controlling taxation, and pretty much entirely ignoring local customs, which caused local rulers to lose control. That intense external pressure, that is exactly what triggered the defensive nationalism we were just talking about. Now, you're going to want to memorize that Malay nationalism evolved through 3 distinct stages. First up is the religious stage from 1906 to 1926, which was heavily sparked by the Middle Eastern Islamic Reformation. Then, from 1926, it shifts into a socio-economic stage where English-educated elites aim to improve their economic status. And finally, by 1936, it enters the political stage, with associations forming full-blown political parties that were demanding unification.
Go ahead and pause the explainer right here to screenshot this table. It's a massive study hack. It's super important to note that in early Malaya, nationalism was definitely not a single unified movement. It was actually deeply segmented. Malaya nationalism was deeply rooted in local economic and religious reform. Chinese nationalism initially focused heavily on homeland politics and figures like Dr. Sun Yat-sen. Meanwhile, Indian nationalism drew its inspiration from anti-colonial movements back home, like Mahatma Gandhi. Understanding these distinct starting points is absolutely vital for your exam.
All right, on to Section 3, Forging National Unity.
National unity in Malaysia is officially defined by the phrase unity in diversity, or persatuan dalam kepelbagaian. Since it's a fundamentally pluralistic society, unity doesn't mean erasing differences to create one single homogeneous culture. Instead, it's all about people from different ethnic, religious, and cultural backgrounds working together, all while proudly retaining their unique identities.
Benedict Anderson's concept of the imagined community is totally perfect for understanding this. It describes how a pluralistic society projects harmonious interactions. Basically, even if you don't know every single person in your country, you share this psychological bond, an imagined community, where individuals are actually willing to prioritize the greater good of the nation. Seriously, drop imagined community in your essay for some easy top marks.
Let's pivot a bit from social history to hard legal frameworks in Section 4, the Constitution and constitutionalism.
Okay, it is super easy to mix these two concepts up, so pay close attention. The Constitution is the actual, physical written document that states the fundamental rules. Constitutionalism, on the other hand, is the philosophical doctrine that a government's power must be legally limited, essentially the rule of law. You can totally have a constitution, but without actual limits on the government, you do not have constitutionalism.
Article 4.1 is the ultimate filter here. It firmly establishes constitutional supremacy, literally stating that the federal constitution is the supreme law of the land. This means any law passed after Merdeka Day that is inconsistent with it is completely void, no exceptions. Even the executive and legislative branches have to bow down to it.
So if you get a question asking why the Constitution is so important, these are your 4 mandatory bullet points. 1. It indicates the legitimacy of the government.
2. It protects the fundamental rights of the people. 3. It acts as a strict limit on government power to prevent tyranny. And 4. It delegates power between the federal and state governments.
And finally, bringing it home with Section 5, Fundamentals of Malaysia's Constitution.
There are 7 core fundamentals that literally form the nation's DNA, and you need to know these by heart. First, the supremacy of the Constitution. Second, Malaysia is a federation. Third, it's a constitutional monarchy with a rotational king. Fourth, a parliamentary democracy. Fifth, a nation with religious freedom where Islam is the official religion. Sixth, a guarantor of fundamental rights. And seventh, a protector of special rights for Malays and the native tribes of Sabah and Sarawak.
Operating as a federation means that unlike a unitary system where a central government just controls everything, Malaysia actually divides its legislative, executive, and judicial powers between the center and the states. And the judiciary acts as the watchdog to make sure neither side oversteps their bounds.
Now, for some extra points on your paper, the real nuance is in how these fundamentals are applied. For example, while Islam is the official religion, enforcing Islamic law is actually decentralized to individual state assemblies. And while fundamental rights like freedom of speech definitely exist, they aren't absolute. They are completely subject to regulation by Parliament for the sake of public order and national security.
All right, as we close the books on this crash course, here is your ultimate active recall check. Can you define 4 distinct views on nationalism and list 4 fundamentals of the Malaysian Constitution right now without looking at your notes? If you can, you aren't just ready for the paper in 4 days, you actually understand the complex legal and social fabric that holds a nation together. Good luck on the exam, you're going to crush it, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.